Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Really excited about today's session. I'm not sharing my screen yet, but I will be shortly. We've got a number of individuals that have RSVP'd for today, I think near a couple hundred. So I know we may have a few individuals that are going to be running behind schedule, but I can see everyone hopping on now. Really excited about today. Very excited that this is the first webinar where you're not just going to be hearing me, you'll be hearing a couple of my good friends as well. And before we get started, in the chat, if someone besides Lenny and John, if you can just enter a one or a yes in the chat that you can hear me, that would be greatly appreciated. And yes, awesome. Thank you. So we're going to get started in about 30 seconds. And I'll start to share my screen. We've got a lot of great information today. We're going to be talking about what can be awkward. So from awkward to automated, and how we can really help to leverage that of reviews and referrals to really help grow that of our security business. And whereas this is geared towards that of the dealer integrator, there are going to be some of these things that are going to be tried and true that will work for those of us that are on that of the vendor side. So once again, I will say first things first, to each of you that are watching this live, thank you. As my daughter says, I love you. Really appreciate that. And I've got a really big, extra big heart for my good friends, Lenny and John. Thank you. We've had a lot of fun. For those of you, obviously you've not been with us as we've been prepping for this. We've had a lot of fun. We've learned a lot of interesting things about each other that we didn't know, and I won't get into those details right now, but a big heart for two of you. So really appreciate that. So want to be respectful of everyone's time. So we'll go ahead and get started. And awesome. Thank you. One quick thing before I start to share my screen is we would really like for today to be very interactive. This is not meant to be a one-way voice, whereas Lenny, John, and myself will be communicating one way with you. We really want to make sure that each and every single one of you that are watching this live and on demand are getting the most out of today. So let's make this interactive. We will have only 4 questions. For those of you that have been on these sessions before, we'll have 4 interactive Slido questions. But we'd like to, from time to time, we'll ask some things in the chat. If you have questions, please interact or interject that in the chat. And one quick thing to note is if you're okay with us sharing you by name, make sure that you disposition to everyone. If you would prefer to be anonymous for the group, please say panelist and host, and we will do our best to not, well, I'm saying for myself, to not get that backwards, to be respectful of everyone. So with that said, if we can have someone just confirm, Lenny and John, you can see my screen with that of the slides, correct? Okay, awesome. All right, so we'll go ahead and quickly get started. And as I'd mentioned, before we quickly get started, I want to say a big thanks to our sponsor, which happens to be to our company, SD Marketing. Be really quick about this. If you're not familiar with who it is that we are and what we do, we're a marketing agency for the industry. We only work with security companies. We've been doing this for over 13 years. New groups that get started off with us get started in the middle of success. And I will just be remiss if I don't say we're a huge advocate of this industry. I am hopeful that soon we will continue to grow the memberships that we're a part of, but we are very big advocates of the associations. Really quickly, I'll just share about myself, and then we'll introduce that of Lenny and John. For those of you that don't know me, and keep in mind there are QR codes that are here. Let's keep this conversation going. I'd love to keep this conversation going, and if you can, if you can scan the QR code, if we're not connected, you'll be able to connect with Lenny, John, and myself. Really quickly, I have been very blessed and very fortunate to be able to present, not just on these webinars, but at our industry's biggest events on various topics, including that of marketing, video monitoring, state of the smart home, and many other topics with the best yet to come. But today is not about me. It's more about our featured panelists. So Lenny, if you can share a little bit about yourself personally, the role that you have, a little bit about homes, just to help set the stage and share so that the audience knows a little bit more about you. For those that don't know you, that would be great.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, David. Looking forward to presenting with you today. David and I have had the opportunity to present at other events before, so looking forward to our session today where we've added John in the mix. As David said, I'm Lenny Guzman. I still consider myself a bit of a newbie in the industry. I joined in 2021. I joined the team here at Home Security System with our home office being in Fayetteville. We also have a location in Wilmington. Our company has roots dating back to 1908. So we've been around a long time. We've got a strong reputation in our community. And through the 3 and 4 generations that have run this company, they have evolved and changed as times have required, and it's really exciting to be a part of this team. When I joined, I was doing so as the marketing director in 2021, and then in 2023 was asked to take over sales as well. So now I'm holding the title of marketing and sales director. Previously, I spent 20 years in media. So across the Southeast, I worked in several different media organizations where I led sales reps to build strong relationships with SMBs in the community to really help them to develop both traditional and digital marketing solutions to grow their businesses. So I think that aligns really nicely with what I'm doing here in our community. It was an interesting ride because, as we all know, consumer behaviors have changed a lot from the traditional world to the digital world. While traditional is not obsolete, digital is definitely high priority and should be if it's not for you. On a personal note, I love being involved in my community. I serve on a couple boards and love to get out and connect and network both professionally and personally within the community. I think that's very fulfilling and also helps extend our brand and speaks to who we are. And when I'm not either working or involved in the community, I'm chauffeuring my 14-year-old daughter around to gymnastics or begging her to spend time with me, because we all know teenagers get to that point where they want nothing to do with you. But loving life and appreciate this opportunity.
Well, I'll tell you what, John, before we get to you in just a moment, I want to actually correct something that you just said. It was what you started off with, which is, and this is going to be very evident. And I think everyone, by the way, as I make this comment, if you agree with me, put a heart in the chat. But I believe, Lenny, based in my experience, we've known each other for a few years. You are not a novice at this. Like both you and John, look, first of all, the 3 of us are great friends, but you were both carefully selected because you both are experts. And I know that both of you are very, very humble. And you know what, as am I about these things, but both of you are absolute experts and will be sharing some great things. So I respectfully disagree. I don't think that you're I think that you definitely have some great chops. And guess what? Knowing by the chat here, looks like, by the way, there's not, I'm not the only one that feels that way, is my point. So I appreciate everyone engaging with that. So John, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about yourself and that of your group and a little bit of your background, that would be great.
Yeah. So, hey, I'm John Bennett with Loud Security Systems in Kennesaw, Georgia. And we have been, I guess, I've been with Loud for about 13 years. Loud has been around for 30 years, going on 30. So we got a big celebration coming up here soon. They started in 1995, so next year, but we got a little bit of time to get ready for that. And let me tell you a little bit about Loud. We have about 60 employees, and we have, I think, a little over 11,000 customers right now. We are led by someone that I think everybody in the industry, if you've been in the industry at all and gotten around to know anybody, you're going to know John Loud. And he's got the appropriate name for the business. And I remember I've been in the industry now for about 18 years, and I remember I used to be with Brinks and then Protection One, and I always saw these yellow signs and thought it was unique because it was the only yellow sign out there, and I thought that was really cool. But the name, I thought, like, wow, loud alarms. Well, wow, it's is that something? And then I found out that's his actual name. So perfect name for the industry. But Loud is doing really well. We're on the SDM Top 100 list. and moving up each year. We just got for Georgia, Best of Georgia. We're in Cobb County, and we got Best of Cobb this year as well. So we've got a lot of good little accolades to put our names out there. But the biggest thing that gets us out there is John Loud himself. And I'm so happy to be part of his team, to work for him, because he gives you a lot of sometimes a lot of rope, but a rope to hang yourself sometimes too. So I get out there and can kind of be goofy and fun, but you can also be in this industry. You can have fun and security, but also be serious as well. But as for me, like I said, I've been in the industry now 18 years, third company, and the best of all of them. In my career before that, I was with Cox Enterprises for 13, 14 years, as a strategic marketing manager. And this has been by far the best of all, and I've stayed with them now going on the longest stint. So I think this is where I'll probably land my plane. But anyway, and then as far as on the personal front, I have a family of 7, and 2 dogs. So our house is always a little bit crazy, and so it kind of matches the work environment. And I would say, just to end it, is my door is always open and my phone is always on. Feel free to holler, and I subscribe fully to the John Loud mantra of rip off and duplicate. So hopefully we'll be able to do a little bit of that today. And anything that you see or hear or whatever coming out of my lips, if you think it's something that you want to learn more about, feel free to holler. I'm more than happy to share and help out. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, wonderful. And I'll tell you what, John, it's as I'd mentioned about Lenny a couple of minutes ago, both of you do such an incredible job with your marketing. And as we go through things, I know, I'll go ahead and move forward with things, but like as we go through things, it's very evident that both of you are absolute experts in what we do. And by the way, don't get me wrong, we all have a long ways to go and to grow and things in this regard. And that's part of the purpose of today, and what our webinar series is all about, is for us to collaborate and to learn from each other. And once again, I don't want to continue to repeat one of the things that you mentioned, but one of the things that I'll never, ever forget is from that of our good friend, Mr. Loud, from John, is the R&D and the rip off and duplicate. And that's the whole point, is we're here to learn from each other. Now, mind you, we probably don't want to do that for our direct competitors. Of course, we want to make things our own, but you take into consideration, as I'm seeing who is here live, we're from all throughout the country. And I think there may or may not be a couple of individuals that are actually out of the country, but okay, let's quickly get into the agenda. I'll have a few prepared remarks, and then we'll go into that of more of an open dialogue, whereas I'm going to not really share screen much besides just a few visual references, and we'll go ahead and get onto things. But really, we're going to talk about the power of reviews and referrals. We'll talk about their impact, how they help to influence not just the buyer that buyer's journey, but how it can even enhance SEO really, really briefly. And then really the lion's share of today is going to be talking about that. We'll have an open dialogue amongst the three of us. And keep in mind, if anyone has any questions, please use that chat. Please use the Q&A. We'd love to make sure that we're making today as impactful as possible. So with that said, I'm going to really quickly zip through these as quickly as possible, just to really help set the stage. I think, though, we're all going to be on the same page with this. So let's talk for a minute or so. Why do actual reviews matter? Like, why are reviews important? And they help to build trust, and they help to build customer confidence. And here's the thing. Those of us that are on here live, we may not be doing things this way. It may be, it may not be. Remember, in marketing, it is not just about what is our personal viewpoint, what's our sentiment. It's more along the lines of what do our customers do at mass and at scale. And remember, we're not going to be able to get 100% of things correct in terms of that of our customers. But look, the reality is our customers do rely on reviews. If you're on the vendor side, we have a big, because this is such a big, small industry, when vendors are very active and are at events and doing virtual events, etc., there's a way to build relationships. But in our local communities, where we may have hundreds of thousands or millions or tens of millions of potential customers, It's not going to be possible unless I'm going to keep picking on our good friend here, John Lott, unless you've got the personality and that name brand recognition of like a John Loud as an example. Like you're going to have a lot of prospective customers that may not necessarily know who we are and what we do. And as they're evaluating, all these things are really, really important. So let's talk just for a second or so about why do referrals actually matter? Well, here's the thing. Keep in mind, all of us generate business through referrals and word of mouth. And the whole point here is imagine having a systematic process, whereas we're able to amplify that of our referral, our referral program. But keep in mind, it's not just that. Remember, keep in mind, we're in the long game in terms of RMR and having a long lifetime value of our customers. But remember, one of the things in terms of lowering attrition, which is the dirty word in our industry, is layering services. And keep in mind, usually individuals that get referred to us, they are easier for us to go through that sales cycle, and they tend to actually layer services, which means the actual average sales value is a lot higher. And as I'd already mentioned, the conversion rate is going to be a lot higher because this is going to be someone that is coming pre-positioned to buy because someone that they know, like, and trust referred us to them. So in terms of the actual impact itself of having that of a strong review and referral system, keep in mind, I have just a couple of quick stats. So nearly, just over 9 out of 10 consumers say that online reviews are going to influence in one way, shape, or form their actual purchasing decision. This is according to Podium, and this comes from last year in that of Podium. And I'll tell you what, once again, just for those of you, because like for me personally, I don't necessarily personally rely on reviews a lot, or I tend to be a little more strategic with how I'm reading them and not necessarily just reading the first few. But keep in mind, nearly everyone does, nearly all of our customers do. So it's really, really, really important. Now, in terms of from the referral standpoint, just over 1 in 3 customers acquired through that of referral, they have a much higher retention, have a 37% higher retention rate. And that's according to Deloitte. In terms of, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, the average sales value, that average lifetime value is much higher. And according to Wharton School of Business, individuals or customers that are referred to us have a 16% higher lifetime value compared to that of a prospective end user that's not referred to us. So keep in mind, when you look at it from the numbers perspective, these things are really, really important. So I appreciate everyone being here, and I'll quickly talk about things from an SEO standpoint. So if you are a business that has a number of positive reviews, nearly 1 in 2 users you'll have a 45% increase in that of the CTR, the click-through rate. So keep in mind, like as you're on Google as an example, and you're within that section in that maps section, and now it's only 3 of us. So keep in mind, it's a lot, not as easy to get in that particular section. As you have these positive reviews, which also the positive reviews are a part of the ranking itself, but according to Moz, you've got a much higher CTR click-through rate. Keep in mind also, and by the way, over these last couple of days, for those of us that keep an eye on this, and we're not going to talk about this in detail, there's been a huge leak of 1,400 ranking factors from Google in terms of what are the 1,400 ranking factors. And keep in mind, one of the important ones is actually having reviews within your Google business profile and other of your local your local listings and things in that regard, where reviews are an opportunity. And keep in mind, according to Moz, the reviews account for just over 15% of Google's local ranking factors. And is Google the best site for reviews? I'm going to address that in just a sec, Lori, but the short answer is going to be, well, I'll address that now. So the short answer is yes. From that of a dealer integrator perspective, and Lenny and John, if you'd like to add to this, feel free to add to this in just a sec. But from the dealer integrator perspective, the short answer is yes. And the reason being is, even if we're an integrator, that we are dealing with medium to large to enterprise end users, these things are really, really important. And they're important for not just one reason, but for multiple reasons. The reason why is, and it has to do with the slide that I have up now that I'll talk about in just a moment, but keep in mind, it is something that will help when someone is evaluating you, because remember, we have the attention span that's less than that of a goldfish. And just like this, we want to make sure that we're giving the user, the prospective customer, every reason they want to pass that eyeball check, to engage with us, to pick up the phone, to go to our website, to fill out a form. The other thing is, because of what we have here, and then John and Lenny, if you have anything else to add, feel free to add in just a moment. But keep in mind, not just in what the customer, the end user, is sharing in their review in terms of the words and the phrases. It could be the name of your security company. It could be the services that you're doing. It could be names of members of your team. It could be, all a combination of these things. But also remember, in every single review that gets submitted to us, whether it's a positive or a constructive review, we want to respond to that. And we don't want to stuff keywords in terms of access control, video surveillance systems, security systems, etc. But we do want to make sure that we're strategically including those, because keep in mind, when I say long tail keywords, this is not like security. This is going to be security system company near me, or security system company in, Atlanta, Georgia, or in Wilmington, North Carolina, as an example, or etc. So these things are things that help in that SEO. I don't know, Lenny or John, and don't feel compelled to, but if you have anything to add to that of Lori's question, feel free to add, and otherwise we can move on.
No, I agree 100%. The only thing I would add is every community is different. So staying in tune with if Angie is really popular in your community, if there are other places that your community goes to search for your business, then make sure you're staying abreast of what's going on there too. But yeah, Google is definitely king.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Seems like Google just is dominating it as far as being even attached to search engine stuff as well. That's key. But I wouldn't neglect other ones as well. I would just say it's easy enough to put links out there and to have QR codes out there that can go to Angie. Because the one thing with Google that's kind of a hindrance, but I totally get it, Google can do this, is that you have to have a Gmail to leave a review on there. So I'm asking for some, and then some people are just replying back like, I can't, but you guys are great. So then what I did was I ended up throwing a link to Angie's and a link to Yelp as well. So definitely have some other things and build those up, because there's like what she's saying, in your community, it might not be Google. They might go over here, and now you've got nothing over there because you've been focusing on Google. So although Google is dominating, and you definitely want that's the big one you want up there, I would say, just keep in mind these other guys and work on them as well, because you'll get some folks and maybe that's their only avenue to leave a review is on Yelp or Angie.
Yeah, appreciate both of you sharing that, and 100% agree with you. I'll address really quickly these other questions that have come through. And I know, let's see, Alan, you raised your hand. Are you able to ask a question in the chat or send it to me directly? And then I'll also quickly address these as well, which is, let's see, Paul Ellis asks, are there other media that we need to concentrate on? So, Paul is going to be on the vendor side at that of Recognize. And keep in mind, from Paul's perspective, you're going to be looking to generate some end user demand gen that will be deployed through your dealer channel, of course, because you don't work direct with the end user. So keep in mind, Google will be really important from that perspective, so that whether it's a dealer that's evaluating you or an integrator, or that of an end user that's evaluating this because maybe their integrator is having this as part of their, what they're proposing for the solution. These things are really, really important. As Lenny had mentioned, there's Angie's List, there's Yelp, there's a number of these other groups. And to John's point, I would say go for Google first. And if they don't have a Google, have your backup plan. It could be your Facebook, it could be Yelp. Like, all these things factor into things. And I'm not going to repeat what it is that Lenny had mentioned in the chat, but all these things really are really important. They're huge. They're all important from the ranking factor perspective, but Google is going to be your number one, your best bang for your buck, if that makes sense. And then there was another question here. Is Yelp less relevant than I would say, to not get too deep into this, I would say yes, but don't discount or don't not do it, because if keep in mind, your customers are not going to be wanting to leave several reviews across multiple platforms. But those of them that you have a really good relationship with, and they'd be open to that, have them duplicate that on these others, because it's going to require, but this is where we once again want to make it really easy for them. And John had a really good point. QR codes, having the links that you could easily text and things in that regard. So Eric, I'm going to get to your question in just a moment. Let me get through a couple of other things here really quickly. And speaking of interactivity or engagement, this is where I'd love for all of you to participate. And this is, so with that of your phone, if you quickly just go to and scan this, scan this question. We have just 4 quick questions. And I'd love to be able to see as to what everyone's thoughts are here. And keep in mind, it's like the question is, do you currently have a formal review program in place? Is that yes, no, or planning to implement? And keep in mind, I'd really like for everyone to answer this honestly. And the reason being is, as you answer this, it's going to be interesting to see as to how you compare with these 4 questions relative to that of your peers. And especially for those of us that are going to be watching this on demand, this is going to be really, really helpful in things in this regard. So, I'll give this just another second, or, another 5 seconds or so. We'll move on to the next question. And if you stay on this screen on your phone, it'll automatically go to the next question. We'll give this another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll go to the next question. So the next question is, how would you rate the effectiveness of that of your referral program? Is it non-existent, needs improvement, moderately effective, highly effective? And we'll give this just a moment. Once again, I really, really appreciate everyone engaging with this honestly, because this is going to help not just you, but it'll help others, because this is real life data based on security companies throughout the entire country that are sharing these things. So I really, really, really appreciate each of you addressing this. Okay, we'll give this just another moment or so, maybe another 5 seconds, and we'll move on to the next. We have just 2 more really quickly, and 2, 1, and thank you. We'll go to the next one. So in terms of getting reviews, what's your biggest challenge? And if you can select the one that's going to be the biggest challenge, is it customers forget to leave reviews, technicians are uncomfortable asking, lack of streamlined process, other, and if it's other, if you can specify, negative feedback concerns. We'll give this just another minute or so, or another few seconds. And this is, this is interesting. Customers forget to leave reviews. I mean, I'll say this, and we're going to get into a little bit more detail to this, but remember, out of sight, out of mind. Think about that. And when we get to that, we're going to talk about this more in detail. We're all super, super busy. And I'm going to quickly, all right. Okay, so I think we've got everything answered here. So let's just go on to I believe this is our final question here. So what's your biggest challenge in getting now referrals? Is customers don't know about the program. We don't have a formal program. It's difficult tracking. Is it referral rewards are not attractive enough, or it's other? And we'll give this just another moment and really, really appreciate everyone. And we're going to take a look here in the chat here momentarily as well. Okay, we'll give this just another 5 seconds or so, and we will move on. But really, really appreciate everyone.
It's great info, David.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's, and to your point, John and Lenny as well, like this is, keep in mind all this data across all the polls that we were doing with all of our webinars. This is really, really helpful, useful data based on real security companies and things that we can write, articles and things that will be really helpful. So really, really appreciate this. And as we're going through this, we can keep these things in mind. So we'll go ahead and move forward. So we're going to transition now towards, and before we get to this, let me just see some of these questions really quick. So let's see. Eric Brown asks, what metrics are you reviewing to determine the most important review platform in your area? Where do you find those metrics? Do either of you prefer to answer that? Otherwise, I'm happy to answer that.
You can go.
Okay. So Eric, I don't believe So presuming that you are like a dealer integrator, the long and the short of it is really simple. It's going to be two metrics. It's going to be Google, and here's why. The reason why those two metrics, I had shared those before, so apologies for being redundant. The reason why it's Google is because keep in mind, today, we're in the middle of 2024, and I don't see this changing anytime soon, although AI is making a lot of strides. All great empires come to an end, including, I'm not saying Google's going to come to an end anytime soon, but, Google's only been around for 15, 20 years. So, and in advertising, that's a very short period of time. But my point being here is all of the users, the lion's share of the users go to Google. So we want to make sure that that's the case, and we want to make sure that we're ranking. Being that it's a big ranking factor, those are the two metrics, because Google has all the users, and because of the fact that this is a big ranking factor for Google, this is going to be the primary one you want to focus your efforts on. And then Eric had a follow-up question is the cost effectiveness of a referral program / software to collect reviews. Okay, so I'm happy to address that, but do either of you want to address that, Lenny or John? I'm happy to address that as well.
Well, the one thing I would say, and we'll get into some of that stuff, so I don't want to hijack future questions or whatever, but I would say at this point, if you look at the data that you just exposed right there in that real-time questionnaire, is that I would say you're not alone. I mean, everybody's in the same bucket. It just doesn't seem to be, like anybody's got the magic key, except for maybe a couple. And I'd be so interested in hearing what those folks have to say. But so the big thing is, the good news on that is not just beating yourself over the head and we don't have anything great, is to say, right now, forget software or anything like that, is that you can just jump right in. There's so much on the free side that just doesn't take a whole lot of effort, and we'll discuss some of that stuff, but you can really ramp up reviews pretty quickly, and then maybe start to look at, we're not even using any software right now, but I think, maybe down the line we will, but for right now, there's stuff that you can do to just get reviews up pretty quickly without spending a dime or a whole lot of effort.
Yeah, I'll echo. I won't get into too much detail, but to John's point, we're going to talk about some strategies that if you're not implementing today, this is going to be your time to start getting your notepads out and start jotting some notes down, because we're going to be sharing some gold here. In terms of software, in terms of the software program, there are a number of different programs, and Paul, if time permits, we'll get to some of these programs that I can share here towards the end. So maybe if someone can remind me of this, and just, as we get towards the end, I can refer some of these. But I'll tell you what, remember, out of sight, out of mind. There is a way to be able to generate 20, 30, 40, 50% conversion rate with actual review, with doing things in the way that we're about to speak, as opposed to a 0.5% to 1 to 2%. That's not going to get it done. Now, mind you, if we have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of customers, clearly this makes a big difference. But the ways that we're going to be showcasing here shortly is going to really knock your socks off here. So Lenny, I'd like to start off with you in, we have on the screen here, we have a couple of screenshots of both of your locations, and as you can see, I'm sure everyone's seen this. Without me showing you my poor math skills, we've got a lot of reviews here between two of these. We've got 745 reviews as of, I believe, yesterday, and maybe there's even another one today that has come through here. So, as we were prepping and talking about things, you'd shared a couple of stories. You shared a number of stories, but can you speak a little bit to a story as to how you helped to, over these last couple of years, how you've really helped to grow that of your reviews by that of over 450, and in terms of like some of the strategies, like what are some of the strategies that have really helped you to really help you get there?
So a few of the things that in the whole scheme of things were really easy to implement, creating QR codes. So creating QR codes for our technicians so that the books they carry around, the phone they carry around, easily have a QR code available that they can show the customer if they're having a great rapport and they felt like the install or service call went well. They have it quickly accessible to them to where they can ask for a review on the spot. People have the best intentions and, oh yeah, I'll leave a review, but they get busy, they forget, and they never circle back to do it. So you're able to get it in the moment, they're more likely to do it. So that was one of the things we implemented at the bottom of our email signature, a link to Google review. If you enjoyed your experience working with us today, we'd love a Google review, making it easy for people to get to the Google review page. I think most in our industry send out surveys after their jobs and their service calls. So what we did was anyone that ranks, it's a one simple question survey that goes out, and it's how likely are you to refer someone, 1 through 10. If they give us a 9 or a 10, it pops up and gives them an opportunity to leave a review. We invite them to leave a review. That, in addition to the email signature and the QR codes, has really helped over the past couple of years where we made those slight adjustments. Didn't take a lot of time on our part to do that. And something that was in place prior to myself, and we may get a chance to talk more about this later, but was we do a monthly all staff meeting and we do a prize wheel spin. And so all staff, technicians, sales, customer service, our central monitoring station, everybody is given the opportunity, if they are personally mentioned, if their name is mentioned in a Google review, once a month they get a chance to do our wheel spin. It could be anywhere from $10, gas card, $100, and that brings a lot of energy and focus around how important reviews are. And people are getting mentioned over and over again because you can tell that they're having those conversations about asking for reviews.
Yeah, I love that. And a couple of quick follow-ups on that, Lenny, is I know that we were just asked a couple of minutes ago about software, and I know we're not going to get into automated software platforms at this moment. If we have time, I'll share a few that that those can look into. But like with your survey and with emails that are sent out, maybe I'm already answering the own question, but maybe you can speak a little bit to the platforms or the software, so to speak, that you're using to be able to achieve this.
We don't use any special software or platform. We've looked at some, and it can be costly, especially if you have multiple locations because you're paying per location. There's some other benefits to using some of them because they have all these other ancillary options that can help you, but we just didn't feel like it was worth it at this point. And so it's just us figuring out small things we can do along the way to help drive more focus on it and reminding people to do them.
I love that. To me, tiny hinges swing big doors.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but any of us that don't have anywhere near 740 or 750 plus reviews without using this fancy software program, like these things that Lenny just referenced and what John's going to be talking about can really help to move the needle and to move it very, very quickly. And by the way, if my memory serves me correct, Lenny, like before you made this conscious effort to really have the systematic approach in implementing all these things, you didn't have a tremendous amount of reviews, if my memory serves me correct, right?
Yeah, we've grown it and like I said, I started here in 2021. So in that time, we've grown it almost 500 reviews.
I mean, that's huge without a fancy software platform. And don't get me wrong, there is a time and a place for these software programs. And if there are any software programs that are on, my apologies. I don't mean to be speaking constructively about because there is a time and a place, and there is automation is really, really important. So appreciate that, Lenny. Thank you very much. So John, I'd like to transition to you. So in terms of, and ironically, with the question that was just asked about, software, and I'm going to not steal your thunder with email, but can we speak about that and I'll share my screen here in just a moment as well, so you can walk us through this. But can you speak in terms of like ways that you've leveraged technology to be able to generate that of reviews?
Yep. So I agree wholeheartedly with what Lenny said. We do a very similar thing, maybe the same program. I believe it's Net Promoter. But it's a email survey that goes out, which is great to get that feedback real time while it's happening, or whatever. A customer just had an install or just had a service call, and we're getting feedback right away. And not all of it is positive as well. And so I want to say, a lot of times we shy away from the negative. We just don't know, who wants to deal with negativity or conflict or any of that kind of stuff. And I would say, just an encouragement, I know I'm diverting just a little bit, but is to say, address those negative things just as quickly and ardently. And a lot of times you're going to turn it around and get a good review out of it, because, and I tell customers this all the time, it's not that we get it right every single time. A lot of times people are thinking, well, they messed up, and so I'm ditching. We have an A+ BBB, not because we get it right every time, but because we want to make it right every time. And so you have a really good opportunity with those negative feedback, whether from a survey or even when you see a negative review, pop up there, to turn that thing around into a positive review. And now you've got a customer, not just that, but customer retention, because people are surprised, more so, not so much that the mistake that you made maybe in their eyes, but more that you came back and wanted to make it right with them on a personal level. And then they're glowing about you. So don't hesitate to make that phone call, although awkward as it may be, to deal with those negative things as well, because that can be a great source for positive feedback coming in. But to answer your question, David, we do that survey, and then it comes into our general manager, Eric, and then Eric forwards them on to me. And what I'll do is, although they get the opportunity to leave a Google review, like you said, a lot of times they don't want to leave they've already said their words on that survey, so then they're all good at that moment, and then they just say not at this time and don't leave a positive review, even though they've got that opportunity. So then I take that a few days later and come back and go, hey, if you wouldn't mind, more personal one-on-one email, and go, thanks so much. Would you mind clicking here? And I just give them a click to just rate us. Sometimes asking for a review, asking them to write something again might be a big task, but just saying, hey, if you wouldn't mind rating us, because really all I want is that 5-star, so if you can just click and do a star rating. So we address the surveys that way, and then the negative ones as well, we reach out and see what we can do to address that. So another way to get Google reviews started and I'm going to say this, and a lot of you may feel the same sentiment that I did. I kind of thought I might lose my job for doing this. So, and I'm not saying that it's going to turn out the same way. I hope it does, but I'm just going to tell you what happened with us. Is that so John Loud wanted to see our Google reviews boosted, and I just looked at, golly, I don't know what to do. I how else do we get them? We put some placards at events with a QR code, and we're trying to tell the sales team, well, here's $5 if you get a Google review from a customer. So all those are good things. And things we still do, but I decided to just kind of take a leap into something that could either, bury me or do well. And fortunately, it did well. Was I got a list of all of our customer emails, and we use Constant Contact. I don't know if any of you guys use that just to do emailing out to all of your customers, but I mean, there's some free ones out there depending on, how much you want to spend or how many customers you want to send it out to. MailChimp is another good one. I think they have a free limit of about 1,000. But I decided to take our customer base and do a mass email, and I did this. It just says, thank you for being a loyal Loud customer. We have a big favor to ask. If you had a great experience with Loud, would you take a moment to leave us a review? And each 5-star review helps Loud. And then it's a click to leave a Google review. And then because they have to, I learned this afterwards. Initially, I just had that one. And then realizing that so many of our customers just responded going, I can't leave a review. I don't have Google. I don't have Gmail. So then I included on there Angie as another option. I didn't want to have too many on here. And then I said, and hopefully this is where I was really putting all my chips in, saying that because I realize I'm giving them the opportunity to leave a Google review, which might mean they trash us and down goes our rating on Google and all that. But I said, if your experience has been anything less than excellent, or you feel there's something we can do to make your service better, we'd love the opportunity to hear your concern and do our best. And then here's an opportunity. Just click here. And we get emails coming in every time I send this out. It goes out once a month at the beginning of the month. We send this out to all of our customers. And by the way, here's where it does take a little bit of work, even though it's already a template and I just click send. I've already got my mail group out there, but I do pull out the ones who've already given us a Google review so they don't feel like they're being harassed. And then any of the ones that gave us not so great feedback. And so I got to pull their names back out again. But so here's the nice thing is that human nature is really better than we really think. From when you look around and what you hear in the news and all that stuff, human nature is really good because most people are not jumping on and giving us horrible reviews. Most people who have a concern, you guys haven't called me back, or this happened, or my yard sign broke, and or whatever, they'll email back, and then we forward that on to the right department. And again, it's something that we really do want to hear that stuff too. It's not just about getting our Google reviews up. This has actually opened the door where people just don't know where to give their complaint to. They don't want to take the time to pick up their phone. But my gosh, this is sitting right in front of them. Well, let me just tell them why I'm unhappy. And we've had such a great opportunity to address so many concerns where people might be steaming about, they didn't get a call back on something, or like I said, the yard sign, broke or whatever. And we've had a great opportunity to address all of those and turn those into positive feedback. But real quickly, when this started, just to encourage you guys, Loud has been around for 30 years. Google reviews have been around, or Google's been around for 25, I think. And we had up until a year and a half ago, 142 Google reviews. And since we've been doing this, I sent it out a year and a half ago, and it jumped up pretty quickly and got a good bunch of Google positive reviews. And then in January of this year, we started doing it on a monthly basis. And we've now gone up from January, I'd say, till now. We went from 200 to we're now at just under 500 Google reviews. And primarily doing this. We've now put QR codes on the back of the sales reps' business cards. We put them on the back of the technicians' cards, and we've done a couple other things that I'll talk about later. But this has really been the driver of getting Google reviews. So it doesn't cost hardly anything. Like I said, if you use MailChimp or whatever you use to get it out there, but reach out to your customer base. They were more than willing. I'm so surprised to read genuine paragraphs on there of how much they love Loud, how much they love John Loud, and all of that. And so give your customers that opportunity, make it easy for them, put it out there in front of them, and this will really boost it, and it doesn't cost a lot to do.
I'll tell you what, John, I love it. And I'm once again, no disrespect to any software platforms, but we're talking about the email platform that you use along with QR codes. And we're going to talk about a couple of other strategies here shortly that have really helped you to catapult just like a lightning bolt, so to speak, in terms of percentage wise, where your reviews are. So I know there are a couple of cute questions that came in, in terms of the best media reviews. I mean, we're discussing that already. Lauren Strunzi says, Yelp is the evil empire, in my opinion. Try to stay away from that one as much as possible. Lauren, I agree with you. And when we see each other, hopefully we'll be able to see a number of you at ESX this next week. I look forward to talking about that over some cocktails, because I 100% agree with you. Lenny, I'd like to transition to you with the next question. So you've shared with me some really cool cultural things that you've been doing with that of your team in terms of like the like a wheel spin incentive. Can you speak a little bit about what that is and how it's made such a positive impact in terms of turning this into like the culture of that of your group in terms of referrals and reviews?
Like I had said, we just once a month we have an all staff meeting, and that is our opportunity to update staff on everything that needs to be updated with them, deal with any struggles that we may be dealing with, highlight positives. And one of those positives is obviously any reviews we've had in the last month. So we will read off the reviews that specifically mention names, and those names, those folks get to come up and spin the wheel. And there's tons of excitement around that idea. Clearly, those that get the $100 on the wheel get way more excited than those that maybe get a gas card or $10, but it's a positive experience, and everyone's always rooting for people to get $100. We actually have one gentleman who, I swear, every time he touches that wheel, it's $100 for him. So there might be a little bit of jealousy around him always getting those $100 bills, but it's really exciting. And we also have taken the opportunity to pull out the positive words. I think we have this later in the presentation, but since we're talking about it, in our big conference room on our back wall, we have a piece of signage that we had done. And what we did is I pulled a bunch of Google reviews not long after I started, because we moved into our new building in 2022. And I said, let me pull a bunch of Google reviews, and I threw them into a word cloud software online. And it pulled out, it made bigger the words that were said most often in reviews. And so we have this piece of artwork on our training room / big conference room wall. And it's just a reminder that we were able to, when we moved into this building and had our first meeting, to talk about, look at the words on this wall. Those are not what we're saying about ourselves. Those are the words that our customers are saying. And they're not just saying them once, it's repeated over and over again. So you can really take pride in knowing that those are the things that our customers think about us and the service that we're providing. And so it's kind of keeping us directed due north and making sure we're staying focused on what we should be focused on. And that's great customer service.
Yeah, 100%. And if time permits, we'll actually show that. I'll show exactly, Lenny, what you're referring to here shortly. And it just, I'll just quickly add to that. The whole point here is we want to get the team involved, get them excited about these things. Like, have this be, I don't want to be so extra. I feel like one of my daughter or son's words here. But like, you want to make sure that this is something that's like in grilled, like every single time they're speaking with someone, whether it's an existing customer or a prospective customer, we're instilling out of the gate the significance of how a lot of our customers come through referrals, and we are a review-based organization. And as we embed that during the marketing, during the sales, during the installation, during the service, during the support, it is going to position us and catapult us. Because remember, it's like all these pieces together. It's like all these pieces together are all force multipliers. And I think, Lenny, with both you and John, what we're going to talk about in just a moment, these are keys that make it exciting for your team to really buy into this. Because, as the leader of my team, if I'm excited about something, but my entire team's not excited about it, well, guess where it's going to go? Not very far, because these two hands can only do so much. Yeah. And that's, I think, to me, I don't mean to belabor the point, but think about from yourself, because we have some really unique ideas, some neat ideas that are coming about, but how do you make this stuff your own to get your team to be able to buy into it? So, John, I'd like to transition to you, and I want to combine a couple of questions together. When it comes to that of like your technicians, like, and I know you talked about, and I'll share my screen here in just a moment, but like, I know that you'd mentioned like QR codes. So maybe you can speak a little bit to the QR code, but also speak a little bit to like, and I won't give this away, but like, how do you, without me, I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question without giving this away.
Highlight the feature.
Thank you. How do you highlight or you feature that of members of your team so they feel really special from that perspective? So, maybe you could speak a little bit to, to this, and then you can talk about like that of the highlighting as well.
Yep. So here's one of our technicians, our first technicians. If you guys don't know, that's John Loud. And pointing to the back of his business card is the QR code on there. So it's as simple as that, grab that white space on the back of your business card, even if you've got other content on there, somehow find a way to fit that QR code, because your sales team and your technicians are the ones that are out there, every day meeting with folks, and just to have that, on the back of the card. So even your sales team being out at networking meetings and things like that, having that QR code so easily accessible is a great thing. So I would do that right away. Our technicians, same thing. But what your question was is technicians, and you had it in the survey that you were doing there, Slido, is technicians they want to get in and get out, right? There are so many of them. I know they're fantastic guys, but they're not talkers. Some of them are, but most of them aren't. They want to get in, do their job. They're hands-on guys. Get in, climb in the attic, whatever, get out. And the sales guys are the talkers. So to get the technicians to get the reviews, which for them running the service calls and things like that, they really are the guys that could really help boost our Google reviews or the volume of them. So one of the things that we do, and John Loud helped come up with there's a annual Technicians Day, Security Technicians Day. In case you guys don't know about that, that's something to celebrate your technicians. There's actually a day, a National Security Technicians Day, and we celebrate our technicians. Well, one of the things that we started to do, we thought about ways to help celebrate them, and one of the things was, what they are mentioned a lot in our Google reviews, right? Because that's the interaction with that customer. And they will mention, Corey was out here, did a fantastic job. Wyatt, took me all through Total Connect and showed me how to use the app and all that stuff. And so they'll put that stuff and mention the technician's name in the Google reviews. So I went on and grabbed all these Google reviews, and I was surprised at how many of them mention the technician's name. So we took them and we made them into, foam back giant posters that we hung from the ceiling of our warehouse. Believe it or not, if you see how tall that warehouse is, I don't know what, 30, 40 feet up there or whatever. And John Loud got on a ladder, a teetering ladder with fishing line, and made every one of those things balance and look level. So, he's definitely a hands-on guy, but we put those all over the warehouse, and they are a reminder every day when those technicians come in. They see those posters and they see the names of, for instance, the one on the right there, Joel, Stephen, and Jacob, and all were professional and wanted to make sure I got exactly what I was paying for. And as those technicians come in, even if they're quieter, but they're seeing like, oh, look, Mike and Mike and Mike and Mike. There's Mike up there. And Rob, like Rob is mentioned 4 times or whatever, all over this warehouse. Well, this was actually from a year ago, but now this year, I'm sorry, a year and a half ago, and now this year we even have more because we changed the sign so they would see more ones different from every year. So now we have ones that have red on them and all that stuff. So it is so flooded out there with these signs. But these technicians, every day they come in to get their parts and all that and have their meeting, they're seeing the names of their fellow technicians out there who got these reviews and got their names mentioned. For guys that it might be more quiet or whatever, it's still an incentive. Everybody loves to see your name mentioned and to have a pat on the back. And if you're not grabbing that stuff, it's a missed opportunity because there's so much gold mine stuff in those Google reviews. So by getting them, it's not just boosting it up, right? But if you're kind of lukewarm on getting the Google reviews, there's so much stuff that you can leverage, not just customers seeing that and all the stats that David, you mentioned, but it's also, when these guys see their name on there, they're going out and getting some more Google reviews for us. Also, I'm just going to throw one more thing, is that for social media, if you're looking for content for social media, nothing better than grabbing a Google review, put it on a nice little picture, of a hand writing something or whatever, and throw the Google logo and put the verbiage that this person wrote, how great Loud was, or how great, your company was. And that's them saying that. So you're just sharing that on social media. It goes a long way. So rather than you tooting your own horn, you're just sharing what other people say. So hopefully that helps.
I'll tell you what, John, that is huge. appreciate you sharing that, you know, and as we were looking at that picture, to me, it's so strategic as well, showing you and your team communing together, having lunch, building that culture that like, not family, but like that teamwork is probably the better way to say it, that teamwork. And then as you're eating, having a great time, enjoying each other's company, looking up, what are you reminded of? You're reminded of the fact that you are a business that does great things, because it's not just about doing the referrals. Like, keep in mind, you take into consideration our teams. Look, our teams, what do they want? They want to do good work. They want to feel like when they come and they leave, they made a difference. And look, I'm hoping there aren't any attorneys on that are watching this live or on person or live or on demand. But like, you know, we're doing great things in terms of protecting people and property, and it's like this just makes things feel good. So I realize we are a little behind schedule. I know that some of us may have to leave. We can watch the rest of this on demand. Lenny and John, you okay for just a couple more minutes?
Sure.
And for those of you that have to run, you know, really appreciate you being. We'll have this replay out as soon as possible for the rest of this. We have a couple of really insightful things that we're going to be sharing as well. So, you know, let's say, Lenny, I'd like to transition to you in terms of from that of the referral / review perspective, from the billing stuffer perspective, and I'll reshare my screen here momentarily as well. Can you speak a little bit about your approach to that, of how you're using not just live in person, not just email, but you're even utilizing any touch point, including that of as you invoice, what it is, like an example of what it is that you're doing, please.
For the testimony or for referrals? Gotcha.
Yes, for the referral.
So one of the things that we do is we have a bill stuffer, and we have both a print one as well as a digital one. So anytime someone gets an invoice or a statement from us, there's some type of insert that is included with that. And in the rotation for that, we include this one where we ask for referrals. Those in the digital space, it doesn't have the fill in the blank. It just has the QR code and a link to go back to our website to send in referrals. But we're just reminding them occasionally, don't forget, we've got this referral program where you can get 3 months of monitoring for every referral that becomes a customer. And it's easy. It doesn't take a lot of thought on our part. Would say we probably don't get as many of these as we'd like, but I think a lot of people are hesitant to give up friends and family's phone numbers. It's surprising how many times we'll get a referral from somebody. It's a lead that comes in and they're like, oh, so-and-so referred me. So the person that was referred is telling us more often than the person that referred them, if that makes sense. So I always find that interesting. The other layer to this is we do this also for realtors. So we do make a concerted effort to get out and talk to our realtors on a somewhat frequent basis, because this program applies to them, and who better to ask you to send you referrals than realtors, because they are selling people homes. So we will get out, talk to them, give them a quick, easy form. And if they don't themselves have a security system with us, we give them an opportunity with, once they have 4 referrals, we'll install a basic system for them in their home at no charge to them. Instead of the monitoring, that's their way to get to the point where they could start to earn the free monitoring. We do not limit it. We let them know you can have a year worth of free monitoring if you refer enough people that become customers. So just frequent, we ask people to do it, and some do, some don't, but it's important to talk about it, because you got to remind them, you got to tell them, what you told them over and over again. So.
Well, and I'll tell you what, Lenny, it is so important for some of us. We maybe think these things are like basic and fundamental, but it's like, we have to ask. And this goes into this, I don't mean to re-emphasize this over and over again, but this needs to be a part of our DNA, part of our culture, and things that are done in a systematic, repeatable process by every single member of our team. Because if we don't ask, we're not going to receive. And I'll tell you what, you know, can we get fancier with what the incentives are? Can we get slick with that of these tools? And keep in mind, we're a marketing company and we're big proponents of slick, cool tools, if that makes sense. But I'll tell you what, the fundamentals are so important because remember, you take into consideration whether it's, it could be an insurance company, it could be a realtor. They are looking like some of these things are required, like for insurance companies, not to get too far off into a tangent, whether it's for fire, life safety, whatever the case may be, some of these things are required. And by the way, being able to work with a local reputable company that it's like, hey, Lenny, hey, John, hey, insert whomever it is, like, I need some help. Can you? Absolutely, we can get it done. We'll get it done right the first time. And we're going to make sure we have a solution that is customized based on the need at a reasonable rate and reliably. Like these things are really, really important. And I know with some of these groups, we have to be careful about how we refer or any incentives or what have you. But this goes back to having a formal process, formalizing. It's like, going back to what I had in the screen, these are actual formal documents. And I'm not saying that the documents are what get the job done, but it helps. It's just passing that eyeball check and things in that regard. So,
Hey, David,
yes,
can I jump in just real quick on there's something that John Loud does on a regular basis, and it's really low hanging fruit, and that's the kind of fruit that we like, right? That you don't have to do a whole lot of work for it. Is and I say not a whole lot of work, but there is some work to this, is that he gets out in the community. And if you guys are doing a great job, Loud is just, peppered all over our community, all over Cobb County. And John's been on, the president of the Kennesaw Business Association, that's the town we're in. He's been the chairman of the Cobb Chamber for a couple of years, whatever. And he is out in the community. And he's encouraged our entire team to be out in the community. Because if you're talking about referrals, a lot of your customers that love you to death, they're the ones who wrote those reviews, and they would be more than happy to give a referral. They just don't, you got to make it easy for them. And so if they got to pick up the phone and call someone and go, whatever, they may be mentioning you to their neighbor, but it's still not making something actual happen. They're not connecting you to or the neighbor directly to Loud. But if you're out in that community like John is, I'm using him because he's the prime example of it. But I can't tell you how many events that I've been at back when I was even a sales rep with Loud. John would walk up and hand you a slip of paper, call this guy, or a business card, call this guy, or call this person, because people, if you're in the community, they're seeing you, the representative of Loud, right there, and they'll walk right up and go, "Oh, I heard about you guys," or here's someone that my neighbor wants you guys. Here's their number or whatever. So, real low hanging fruit is make it easy for them. Be out there amongst the people at these events and all that. And I'm just telling you, they will walk up and you'll get those referrals that way from your customers who love you to death, but they just don't know how to engage and put that person with you.
Tell you what, John, it goes back to the fundamentals. And I know we keep overemphasizing this, but this is where communicate with your customers. I know this is not as much the case these days as it has been historically, but it's like, because I remember back when we first started, it's like, I'm sorry, Dave, you said what? Why would you ask me? Why would I want to communicate with my existing customer? Like they're paying their monthly RMI. Why? And it's like, that's the whole point of like this mind shift, this paradigm shift in that communicating with our customers. It's a good thing. As a matter of fact, it's a great thing because one of the things we're not talking about today is not just referrals and reviews, but there are opportunities to layer services, upgrades, and things in this regard. There's huge opportunities. So, this is one of the big things that is so, so important. John, a follow-up question for you. In terms of, can you speak maybe for a minute or two about what your actual referral program is and and talk a little bit about how you've helped to make it effective?
So our referral program is very, very similar to Lenny's. And I love, by the way, Lenny's idea of the bill stuffers. And like she said, you might not get a lot from that. And just because, and many of you guys know this, but just because you don't get a lot from one thing, I remember being back in college in the 80s and it was mass communications, and one little line from that class, I don't remember hardly anything from back then, but one line just really struck me. They said that, what a successful rate of return for marketing is? I don't know if we could add as a Slido question or whatever. Anybody know that, what that percentage is? It's 2%. 2% is a successful return. And you get people like, I've canvassed that parking lot and I did 50 cars and I didn't get anything back. Yeah, because you didn't do 100. You would have gotten one if you did 100, or whatever. Don't get discouraged with Lenny's thing of putting the bill stuffer out there. That's just one avenue. So you're going to get these little trickles coming in, but if you've got enough lines in the water, you're going to be catching fish. So just, don't evaluate everything as far as how effective it is. Just do it. Get out there, get in the community, put the bill stuffers out there, send the email out there. Don't worry about how polished it is or whatever. It doesn't take a lot of effort, but what it does take is doing, just make it happen. So our program is very similar to Lenny's. You get 3 months free monitoring. For every referral. It's 3 full months of monitoring. We used to do just the base monitoring, and then we'd stop. We're kind of being picky with that, and it's really it kind of discourages the customer if they were only getting base. But I was paying that. I thought I was getting 3. So it's 3 full months of monitoring, which can be a lot nowadays with all the services and video and warranty and all that, and get up into $50-$60 a month, and they get 3 full months of monitoring. But again, unless it's out there in front of them, they're not seeing it. So the sales team has to be out there telling them about it and encouraging the sales team to make sure that is not just an afterthought, but that you're talking about with your customer about that referral program. And I'll just say this real quick, is that if they incorporate that really well into the discussion, when it comes time to closing, right? That awkward thing of closing, and a customer's got an objection about the monitoring rate. Well, I was paying $25 a month and you guys are at $29 a month, or whatever, $32 a month, whatever that is. I'll tell you what crushes that is saying, you know what? Your monitoring can be completely free with our fantastic referral program. So if you can refer your relatives, even if they have security, you're thinking like, I don't know who to refer. Everybody already has security. No, those are the ones we want. The ones who already have security, because we're going to get them into a better company and better services or whatever. But if you can do all that, your monitoring rate goes to free. So if you want to help close some more deals and make RMR not a question, get referrals.
I'll tell you I'll tell you what, John, I love that. I'm not going to reiterate everything you just said, although I could, because you had a lot of really great nuggets there. But I feel like I have a new hashtag for you. Get free monitoring for life by referring 4 new customers per year.
Yep.
I mean, it's like to me that's part of the pit. Like, it's easy for many, it would be easy to refer 4 per year and you get free monitoring,
Right.
As long as you do that every year. You obviously there's details and things in that regard, but like, I love that. And I think the key here, I'll say one quick key takeaway is make it easy. And you mentioned this a couple of times. Make it easy for your customers to do business with you, to be able to participate. Be formal about this. Make it easy. Have it present on your website. Have it so that your sales team, every single member of your team that would be interacting with your customers, they either have a QR code or a link that can be text messaged or emailed to be able to take advantage of what's the details, a simple form to fill out, and maybe even Lenny, just for a moment, I think from your perspective, because you don't even, you maybe you could speak actually, Lenny, just for a sec with what John had just talked about, how you make it really easy for your customers to be able to do business with you in terms of referrals, and the fact that you don't even necessarily make them fill out a form.
Oh,
Yeah, so I know this. Yeah, I know. Yeah, please.
So I mentioned the other day when we were talking, so there have been times where when we get a referral, somebody calls in and says, hey, yeah, I'm calling because XYZ told me that I should call you. We'll go ahead and give the referral bonus to the person that they mentioned. So they're like, oh, I didn't know. That's great. So they're getting a referral bonus. They're getting their 3 months of free because somebody name dropped that they're the reason they called. So what easier way to do business than rewarding people for something they did without realizing what they did? Is that what you meant?
Yes, that's exactly what I meant. And it's because the whole point here is
Yeah.
It's, it's even like with us, we used to, when we onboard a new customer, we would send this 10, 15 page plus document and say, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, fill this out. It's not a really good user experience. Number one. Number two, sometimes it takes forever to get filled out. And my point being here is, even though to be able to fill out a form should take 30 to 60 seconds, I want to remove the friction. So it's like, this is where, oh, you refer someone, you don't have to fill out a form, you still qualify, and you're going to take advantage. We're going to make sure, because why? Because we want you to do more. Because once again, we know what the cost is to acquire a customer in marketing. And I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, it ain't cheap. It's very, very expensive, especially in the markets that are really hyper competitive. And even on the, on the commercial front, it can get really, really expensive. Let's see. So, Eric just asked, do you offer anything to the customer that was referred? Maybe it'll be a question, Lenny, for you and John, just a quick answer. Do you offer anything to the customer that was referred? Meaning not your customer that referred, but the actual, and the new customer.
It's really, we give a lot of latitude to our sales reps. If they need to offer something to close the deal, they've got some parameters and latitude with that. And it really is up to them to close that deal and get the new customer.
And John, and if not,
I'd say the same thing. Actually, we give them a lot of leeway to make they've got the relationship in there. But I got to tell you, there's not a whole lot that you got to offer them, because the moment they've been referred by a good friend,
Right.
I mean, you've got it's yours to lose,
Right.
So
I know that we're really up against time, so there's a couple of other key things that I think are really, really important. So I'm going to skip through a couple of things here and this actually, I'd like this question to be for both of you. And Lenny, maybe we can start with you. But in terms of, I won't say negative reviews, we'll say constructive feedback. Because by the way, we are the least perfect, and not anyone that I've ever met is perfect. And especially those of us security companies that do huge volumes. Look, mistakes happen. We do our best to ensure that everything is perfect. But Lenny, if we can start with you, how do you approach these constructive reviews or constructive feedback? Are you like the ostrich that sticks your head in the sand? Like how do you approach that? And if you have an example of how you've been able to transition a constructive review into a happy story, I'd love to quickly hear that. And if not, just how you address it. And then John, we'll head over to you for your thoughts on that, please.
So I'm very fortunate in that I don't really experience a lot of negative reviews, negative feedback. From the industry I was in, where we heard nothing but negative, to this one, it's been a really refreshing experience for me. And you can't have more swagger than to know people love doing business with you. So that's really exciting. Occasionally, and we also help curtail the negative reviews, because on the survey that we send out, the NPS survey that we send out, we only invite them at that point to leave a Google review if they gave us a 9 or a 10. If they gave us anything lower, we've got kind of a benchmark where we'll then reach out to them. Hey, what's going on? If they wrote anything negative, and we'll address that with them. But most of those aren't also going to Google to leave a review. They're just saying it within that, and then we're able to call and address whatever the situation might have been. In the occasional time that there might not be a 5-star review, we definitely don't put our head in the sand. You absolutely, every review you get, you should reply. Thank you so much. If it is at all negative or constructive, welcome them to contact you. If you don't have their contact information handy, welcome them to contact you. Give them the phone number, give them a name to call. We'd love to talk to you more about this and make this right for you. Never leave them unaddressed. But like I said, I've been fortunate, haven't had a lot of negative to deal with.
Thank you. And I mean, that is very evident, of course, but I appreciate you address. I'll have a couple of quick follow-ups on that, but John, if you can answer that as well, please.
So Lenny kind of alluded to this as well. I would say, I mentioned this earlier or whatever, but we all have that. Who wants to deal with, potential conflict. Someone will come into my office and go, "Will you call this person?" Let me just tell you, they were cursing so and so out, and they were, and I'm like, "No, I do not want to call this person. My day's going good. Why do I want to, But so I totally get the sentiment, but I can just tell you from pushing myself through to picking up that phone and dialing that number, when we get those negative reviews or negative feedback or whatever, there's always nothing but good that comes out of that. So if you can look towards the end of saying, hey, my goal is truly to make this better. And maybe it's just making the customer to where they're not quitting. They're not calling and canceling right away. Hey, let's make this right again. That hey, we're a bunch of humans. Anytime you throw a bunch of humans together, there's gonna be mistakes. Till we're all a bunch of robots, but we're not. And so there's just gonna be someone's gonna have a bad day. Someone answered the phone wrong. Someone didn't answer the phone at all. Take the time to make that phone call. It's so easy to shoot just to reply back like, well, that's because you signed a 3-year agreement and blah, 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 just deal with it kind of thing, or whatever. And there I answered them, and definitely answer them. That's absolutely, don't leave a negative thing unreplied to. But I would say if you can locate who that customer is, take the time to look them up in the system, find their phone number, pick up the phone, have a heart-to-heart conversation. The best of all worlds is they will remove that review. I ask them point blank, like, hey, my job, this is all I do. My job is to make Loud look good. And that review is not making us look good. So I realize it's a legitimate complaint, Mr. Smith, and I want to hear it, and I want to make it right. Someone dropped the ball, and if we drop the ball, I want to apologize on behalf of Loud, and I want to do what we can. What can we do? And it involves listening. What can I do to make that thing right? And then I can't tell you how many times we've either gotten it removed, and we've gotten it, that's difficult to do, but we've got several of them removed. Some of them just put an amendment at the end of it, like, I talked to this guy and everything's better now. But they still didn't change their star rating, But what we really are looking for is, at the end of the day, to have some positive thing, and it's going to take you interacting with that customer. And many times we've gotten an opportunity for our sales rep to then go out there and talk to them about cameras or upgrading or whatever. So rather than losing that customer, it's nothing but positive. We get either an upgrade out of it, or we get them to change their review or whatever. So it just, long-winded way to say, take the time to actually talk to each one of those folks, and you'll never regret it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, with both first of all, I wholeheartedly agree with what both of you had mentioned, which is address it. And I love, John, some of the things that you're talking about, which is you're not just addressing it online, you're addressing it offline. And you're listening, you're picking up the phone, and you probably personally were not directly involved with any part of the process, from the sales to the installation, service, etc. And you generally, like you said, you're being humble and through humility asking, please, you're important to us. Every single customer is important to us. And it's not just about fixing the review. It's about just generally, and this comes from John Loud throughout the entire culture of your team. And I know, Lenny, the same thing holds true with you as well, is you genuinely want to have raving fan customers that are happy and that are layering services and that are, getting all these things addressed. So I think, to me, these are things, and look, once again, you may say, why is the individual that does marketing for the industry talking about and promoting all these non-fancy manual? It's because these are some of the fundamental things that work. And I'll tell you what, marketing is marketing's like security. It's very wide, very diverse. But in what we're talking about today, all of these manual things, fundamentals, doing the right thing, listening, embedding this in the culture, all these things are critically important. Eric had asked, and I think, Lenny, thank you for addressing that. So, what do you use to generate the automated prompt to customers that leave you the 9 to 10 response to leave your review? And I don't know, John, if you want to reiterate what you did, but it's actually not a fancy software. Do you want to just really quickly recover what that is? And I can address that.
Well, we use Net Promoter, and Lenny probably knows a little bit more about it because it's coming through our GM that sets that up or whatever. But that's one of the things that they do automatically. So they're sent a, if it's an automatic thing, is that if their overall assessment and from a 1 to 10 is anything greater than, I think it's 8, right, Lenny? Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and then they automatically get an opportunity with a link to go ahead and give a Google review. And then many times people say not at this time, and that's where I'll follow up with them, and then you might get them a little bit later. So they just went through this whole process. They talked to the sales rep out there. They just did all this, whatever. But if you reach out a few days later and just say, hey, would you be willing to click this? So it's, even though they said not at this time, it's still worth following up again with just a short email with that link on there. So.
Great. Thank you both. But I think the whole point here is it's a link in an email is the long and the short of it. There are fancy tools, but it's not a requirement to be able to implement the things that have generated the results that we've been talking about today, which we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of reviews within a short period of time. So I know we're really over time. We'll finish up with 2 last questions, one for each of you. And John, I'd like to start with you, which is when it comes to that of community events to be able to generate reviews. So, knowing that John Loud and your team, you guys are really embedded. Obviously, you guys are really embedded in the security industry, but locally in the markets that you service, I know that there are a lot of community-based events that you do. Can you speak a little bit to that of how what's your approach and what are some of the results that you've received at some of the community-based events to generate reviews and or referrals?
Yeah, so for instance, doing a home show or doing a festival in the area, and you've got 100,000 or more in attendance, it's a great opportunity to get reviews because especially in your own community, right in your own backyard, you're going to come across so many people coming by the booth going, "I have you guys are great." Well, that's so encouraging to hear. But I'll tell you what, if you'll click this, so having something on the table with the QR code right there where they can just click and go on there and leave a review. So asking then of that community. And then the other flip side of that is, I'm just going to tell you, we're playing, down and dirty or whatever, but it's all about getting Google reviews. And I definitely want the ones that have 6 paragraphs on there, naming every individual in the company, how great we are. But at the end of the day, if I just get a 5-star from you, I'm looking for that number to bump up or whatever. I want to see us as having an A. And so you got a whole lot of other companies out there that know you and that are all in that same festival. Maybe there's 150 vendors out there and they know Loud. Many of them have Loud security or have your company or whatever. Take the time, especially when it's slower, when it's rainy or whatever, walk from booth to booth to booth. And I've done where I've said, I'll trade you. Let's trade 5 stars. You guys are a great company. I know you. I eat at your place or whatever. Let's trade 5 stars. You guys have a Google thing or whatever. I'll go on there, dink, hit their 5-star, and I'll get that from them as well. So you want to grab 5, 10, 20 at one time when you're at an event and it's slow, go around to the other booths or whatever and get reviews. So I know that sounds whatever, but there's it's people who know you and they want to talk about you. So.
I'll tell you what, John, I mean, I don't mean to keep reiterating everything that both you and Lenny are saying. Like what you both are saying is like brilliant, but remember, it's all about these pieces of the puzzle that are, as my good friend Sharon Elrell says, all ships rise together. It's all these things that go together that really help to make this positive impact. And I'll tell you what, like you said, having a QR code, it's like, well, that's easy to do because it's easy. That's the whole point, is remove the friction. So appreciate that. So Lenny, as we wrap up, please.
David, let me interject real fun.
Please.
I just, as many times as the word QR code has been mentioned in this conversation, it's killing me because 20 years ago when QR codes were trying to take off, they all but died. And here we are in 2024 and it's QR codes here, QR codes there, QR codes there. It's about making it easy for your customers. And it's so easy now when it used to not be.
That's right.
Yeah.
100% we are on the same page. Yeah. And so Lenny, as we, as we're wrapping up, and then if either of you have any final thoughts, we can talk about that briefly as well. But, final question for you is, and I'll share my screen here in just a moment. But on that same vein or what have you of like embedding it in the team, can you speak a little bit to your testimonial Tuesdays? Like, what is it? It's why, what is it? What's been the impact of it as well?
So not long after I started and was realizing how frequently we were getting positive reviews, and I wanted, but yet I felt we didn't have enough considering how many customers we have. I had this whole like, okay, how do we grow it? How do we focus on it more? I decided, okay, let me highlight some of the great reviews, because what better way to tell the story of us than letting our current customers say how they've enjoyed working with us. So I implemented doing a testimonial Tuesday, which is basically just social media post. And I don't do it every Tuesday. I limit it to twice a month just because I don't want to overkill it. And I do a story on Reels and Facebook, and then I do a post within LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, also incorporated onto my Google business page. And I just pull out a positive review that we've had and incorporate some type of artwork on the post to capture some attention, include our logo, and just reminding people of the great experience others have had with us, and just something subtle. And my hope is that also reminds people, hey, I like doing business with them. Let me do a Google review as well. So just a way to highlight our people. Some of them, it's funny to see how some of the staff, when their name is mentioned, will share it. They don't care any other time, but if their name's mentioned, they'll be happy to share it. So especially those that don't get them that often.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I do have one last thing that I'll share in terms of the next edition on our webinar series. But as we wrap up, John or Lenny, do you have any final thoughts or any things that we didn't cover that's like, I just want to leave with this final thought?
So
For me, I would just say for me, summarizing what we said, ask for the reviews, ask for the referrals, respond, don't ignore it, whether it's positive or negative. You've got a strong network in this industry. If you're not sure how to handle it, reach out and ask. I've said I'm available. John said he's available. We want to see others in this industry succeed. And if we can be of support, I'm sure I can say this on John's behalf as well. We're here for you if you want to bounce ideas. I know not all the businesses are large. We're not a huge operation. And so sometimes it's hard when you're in your head and it feels like it's just you. It is not just you. Feel free to reach out. We're here to support you.
Yep, I echo that. John has always had David, and I appreciate your concern that, that you weren't asking us to share something that would violate our secret sauce or whatever. But John has always had the, people call him or whatever, and he's more than happy to mentor, to help out or whatever, because that's what got us, right? That's what got us. None of us are geniuses or whatever. I mean, there's probably a few like yourself, David, but there's not a lot of us that have gotten up the ladder without the help of other people and sharing ideas. I'm learning from Lenny today, and so definitely being available. But I would say a couple of things. One is you're not alone. When you looked at that survey or whatever, everybody seems to be. If you probably clicked several that yours was the far bar of we've not gotten this, or it hasn't been so successful, or whatever. And we're right there with you. We just discovered a couple of things. And the second thing is just to take those first steps, and it doesn't have to cost money. You don't have to analyze it and figure out, maybe you're not figuring out the best platform or whatever. Just start, just get it going. I always use the example of an anchored ship doesn't go anywhere. It's just the ship that goes somewhere is the one that just starts. They can have the best charts. They both can have the anchored one could have the best map to get there. But the one that's out there and trying things and going to different ports is the one that's going to get there. quickest. I don't know if that's poor analogy or whatever, but it's just get out there and start doing it. And there's enough freebie stuff. If you're not on social media, I would say this is that social media, so many times I can't believe it when I'm at different conferences or whatever, people are like, my wife does that and we don't really have anything yet. Even shops around town, where I got my tires done, the guy's like, we've never done it. Like, you guys are a fantastic shop. How come you don't have anything out on social media? So take a minute, find someone, find a kid in the area, anybody, to create that Facebook page, that Instagram page, that LinkedIn page, and just get yourself out there, because those are also platforms that are free and you can ask for reviews on there. You can ask for referrals on there. So do those things that are free and just start doing. And I'm more than happy to help and suggest or whatever. So.
Well, I'll tell you what both of you have shared over the course of today, including what you just shared right now, is absolute wisdom based on experience. And Eric, I'm going to get to your question in just a moment. But it was ironic, John, what you just referenced. I'm going to quickly address this. Ironically, and we didn't plan this, by the way, but what John just mentioned in terms of social media, I want to just really quickly announce the next webinar in our series, which is talking about social media. And to John's point, and I'm just 10 seconds on this, social media is a very important piece of our tool belt in terms of from a security company standpoint. Remember, there is no magic bullet. It is about reviews and referrals on their own are not going to get you to where you need to go. Social media, ads, the right sales process, the list goes on and on. But where I'm going with this is, I'd love for you to sign up for the next iteration of our webinar series, which is going to be talking about social media. Specifically, we'll be talking about organic as well as advertising on the social media. It's going to take place on Tuesday, June 25th at 10 o'clock Pacific time. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here in just a moment. So I'd love for each and every single one of you. And by the way, like as big of a heart as I can make to not only Lenny and to John, but to the dozens of us that are still on.
Yeah.
Apologies that we went over, but it's not because of me. Usually it's because of me, but it's because of the greatness that I happen to be sharing the stage with. And it's because just in all these great questions, and speaking of great questions, Eric Brown asked the question, will the webinar series cover growing your customer base when you have a small installation base? So this can be a very long answer. I'll try and make this very brief out of respect for everyone. Every single webinar, and Eric, I don't recall if you've been on previous webinars, but on our website, we have replays so you can gain access to them. There's no cost for you to gain access to them. Remember, each of these things all together are going to help. What I will say is, look, I understand that both Lenny and John, they've got a very, very large installation base. They've got a large sales and installation team, and perhaps they generate more installs on a weekly basis or monthly basis than possibly you and others. But remember, to make a dent, and I realize, both John and Lenny have several hundred reviews. And where I'm going with this is, you may generate, and I don't mean you per se, Eric, because I could be speaking to anyone else. You may generate on the average 1 to 5 installs a week. And that does not mean that these techniques that we talked about today don't work. Because remember, you may have 1 or 2 reviews, and maybe our goal is, how do we get to 10? How do we get to 20? How do we get to 50? How do we get to 100? Because I'll tell you what, there was a point in time, and not very long ago, whereas both John and Lenny, I hope you don't mind me saying this, you had less than 100 reviews. And my point being here is, it is not just about the reviews. The reviews are the byproduct of all of these things that we're doing in terms of marketing ourselves effectively, selling the right way, consultatively, deploying the right system, making sure that our technicians are doing great work and doing those fine details that are making these raving fans, and then us asking. But we don't ask at the end, we ask all the way through this process. And to me, what I will say, Eric, as we wrap this up, from you, and I'm not saying you, but let's just say if this could be you or someone else that is a smaller group, whereas maybe you're a single or double person, owner operator, you're controlling everything. So and whomever I'm speaking to right now, you have zero excuses. I expect to see some results. And I'm not speaking to you, Eric. I'm speaking to those that may be smaller groups, whereas like there's just no excuse not to be taking advantage of these things. So once again, thank you, everyone. Once again, Lenny and John, I really appreciate the time that we spent together prepping for this. I appreciate today. Today, today was a really good day. And thank you to everyone that has watched this live. For those of you that stuck around to the end, much love. Really, really appreciate that. And for those of you that are watching this on demand, this was a great one. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. I look forward to seeing many of you at ESX here very, very soon. And, for those of you that are still live, you just got Lenny's personal contact info. So,
And mine.
and John's. Well, for those of you that are not live, I'm going to be very respectful to John and Lenny and not, share those numbers. But for those of you that are still live, we'll give this another 10 seconds so you can get those numbers before I shut things down. But, thank you again, once again, everyone. Really look forward to seeing you at a live event. Would love some feedback with this. And I'm going to work with Zoe to practice what we preach. I think that there is a survey that you will have with this, but if not, we will look to make things a little simpler to get feedback as well. But until next time, make it a great day. And thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Lenny.
Thank you.